A new film is now releasing in Australian cinemas. A terrific film, actually, a film called The Last Film Show, and it's my great pleasure to be speaking to Nalin, the writer director of The Last Film Show. At last, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled to be with you.
Great to talk to you. And I vaguely remember speaking to you, my goodness, it must have been years ago, with your film Samsara.
Yes, I remember. I remember your name and it sounded very familiar. I was telling to the publicist. Yes, yeah, that's exactly maybe 18, now 19 years, a long time. Yes.
Oh my goodness, time flies. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, good to talk to you about The Last Film Show. Tell me about the inspiration behind it because it's such a great love letter to cinema.
So the last film show, I mean, when I became a filmmaker, of course, as you know, Samsara, I never ever thought I would ever make a film about my childhood. In fact, I did the opposite. I tried to run away from it, you know. So, but in 2011 or so, when I was visiting my parents who still live in the region of Kathiawar, which is in northwest of India, and my father told me, hey, you should go and meet your childhood friend. He's in bad shape. So, and he was my projectionist friend. He used to be operator of a movie projector when I was kid. And I very often used to swap my lunchbox with him to watch free movies from the projection booth. So, and so when I went to see him, you know, he was very depressed with a push cart selling vegetable in the streets of India. And I've never seen him like that. I always saw him with movies day and night, rewinding, loading, talking cinema. And he said, hey, I've been fired from my job. And, you know, there's a new systems coming in, you know, and I don't know how to read, write. I don't know how to do the computer. There's going to be DCP and KDM code, you know, and so we both sort of shared a tea and ended up talking a lot about celluloid and the film, and the filmmaker in me kind of woke up to the whole story. And I used to hear stories from friends and family who used to tell me, oh, no wonder we know you are a filmmaker because as a kid, you used to do this and you made your own film show and you had stolen film reels from railway parcel room and got into trouble, ended up 5 days in remand home for the kids. And all these stories used to float around. That incident and his sadness, I thought, okay, but then I didn't want to make a film about sentimental nostalgia either, because as a storyteller, I love to embrace changes. And but when he told me about the recycling of projectors and the movies, it struck me that, okay, everything goes on, you know, everything is sort of reborn in its own form, and we have to embrace the change. And now I know I can probably find a story. And it was such an emotional discussion with him that I started putting down little anecdotes, what I heard from my sisters, my friends, my school teacher, from him. And, you know, and that's what, I don't know how now, but it became a story of the last film show. A kid madly falling in love with cinema, you know, and then he does everything he can in his remote village to make his own movies, or at least try to project one.
Well, congratulations on that. It's such a really a beautiful story and so nicely told. And there is that nostalgia component, of course, because cinema, the way it used to be, has changed considerably, as you've already described with DCPs and all that. So tell me about plotting the film, in other words, getting the story right, and casting, because the young boy who's the central part of the film, he is really terrific.
Yeah, he saved me, in fact. In terms of the plot, you know, when I was writing the story, I, of course, went back to my own childhood memory and say, what is it, the central spine of this story, you know? And very often, the images which stayed with me was neither the screen nor the story, was shafts of light. You know, when I had, as a kid, when I saw my first movie, and in those days in India, you know, people were allowed to smoke BDs and cigarette in the cinema hall. And so the dust particles, along with the ventilator and the fan, so the shaft of light in modern multiplexes, we never see shaft of light. You know, we just see a beam and a screen.
Mm.
But those days, you could see a clear path of shaft of light going from there, and there's a smoke and dust particle playing in between and hitting the screen, and the multiple colors just playing overhead. And I was fascinated by that. I said, like, okay, screen is fine, but what is this? What is this beam of light? Are there people acting inside that booth and being projected? I had, like, my imagination had just gone completely wild. So that obsession with light started, and then I realized, okay, this is so much story about light, and whatever I used to naively know about light, that light becomes stories, stories become film, everything, the kid talk, and we all thought that we discovered the secret, it is the light, among the kid, that, if we catch the light, we can become filmmakers, we can do anything. So I was searching for that innocent, and that quest for light to build the story on Samai's, fascination with cinema, then trying to figure out how to tell stories, which was already there naturally when you lines up matchbox images and makes a kind of a storyboard. Then the stolen frames of the movie, mismatch to tell a story. Then ultimately the quest to make a projection system, which is a very hack job kind of a projector. And they do, once they succeed in doing a silent kind of a projection, then the quest for the sound after light. So that really gave a structure. And my friend's puzzle story of what happened to him gave me the climax of the movie. When projectors are being taken away and the film and everything will be recycled and turned into something else, the life will go on. So that helped me sort of give the structure. But the challenge still was that I knew from day one that if I don't have Samai, I don't have the movie, which is the lead cast of the film. And like professionally we started casting process in Mumbai with my friend, casting director Dilip Shankar, and we were very disappointed. And we literally, after 1,200 audition, we said, well, we should cancel the film production because, no, if you don't have this kid right, this film is never going to work. The kids in India, they watch too much of modern Indian Bollywood movies. They watch reality show. So their ideas of acting are so different than what I was looking for. The very earthy, organic body language, which you find in rural India, which I couldn't find it among the professional child actor. So Dilip, who had done casting for Ang Lee's Life of Pi and had found a non-actor to play the lead. So, and he has done casting of my movies since Samsara, so we both said, why not we go into the rural part where kids very rarely go to see cinema, and maybe there is something there to do. So, and they are non-actors, but hey, we can work with it. We have done it in the past. And we said, but come on, this is lead role. He's practically in every frame of the movie, it will be too much of a risk. But we went anyway, and that's where we hit the jackpot. We knew that there was a magic, and the eyes, the expression in Bhavin. But by then we had seen 3,000 kids. But ultimately we ended up casting Bhavin as Samai and also making his little Lala gang of the kids from the same region. They all come from different remote tribes. And Bhavin actually lives with his family, 2 buffaloes. They are camel herder tribe. Had never been to even Mumbai or any big city. Had only been once to cinema when he was 5-year-old. So, it was like completely a fascination, natural fascination to discover cinema. And he was discovering even celluloid, because when he was born, the world was digital. He never knew the film sprocket. So he said, oh, so he was fascinated by the projector, and all this really organically helped shape his character. And he's a natural born talent. So yes, that's how this whole performance came together. Yeah.
How interesting to hear all that, and what a journey to be able to find him and also make the film. It's and tell me about finding the actual film footage, the nitrate film, all that sort of thing, the old projectors and so on. So technically, and in terms of props and so on, how easy was it to put all that together?
Oh, it was me and my producers were under impression that, hey, this was just 10 years ago. We had all this projection system literally till 2012. So this should be piece of cake. We will find it. But actually, when we started searching, it turned out to be a India across India quest and a nightmare, because India is a big tradition of discarding junk and recycling because no one wants to pay for the storage. So people had saved one negative or one projector in the museum, but really nothing was available which we could use for film shooting, and we required so much of film. And it was a film in itself how we found film stock and film projector. And we could find sometime like 10 minutes of spool, like very small 35 millimeter spool, but not the quantity we wanted. So ultimately we realized that one of the junk dealer, far in the central India, had shut down because of legal problem, of real estate. And his go down, or like a warehouse, was sealed off by the court, since 20 years. And we thought there might be some film, because they dealt with plastic, they dealt with newspapers, magazines, but also in those days they often bought films and recycled metal. And so and we had like 4 months of legal work to do to break the lock from the hike. And finally we opened that warehouse. We realized we found not much, but we found what we were looking for in a good quantity. And then we said, let's look for all such warehouses across India.
Mm.
And sure enough, we found a whole lot of film and projectors. And we knew that there is no way we can design that. They will look very modern, they will look tacky. The way to build those Italian, German-made projectors, Japan-made lenses, they had their own beauty of metal, and it's so organic, and the sound they make is so soothing. So we had to have a real projector. We had to have a real film. And in the end, that paid off. And then we hired several trucks to bring projectors. And literally, you need a crane, because each projector would weigh, which I didn't know ever in my life, that they weigh about 1,000 kilograms and above, one projector, because the base in itself is 500 kilos.
Ah.
And this was created to create a stable image. So when film is being projected, there is no strobe effect on the screen. So they had to make those days a very heavy, solid iron base for the projector, so it does not vibrate.
Again, how interesting to hear that story, that how those projectors operated. Incredible. And yeah, it's amazing. It's interesting, when I was watching the film, and you've probably been told this, of course, a number of times. There are some echoes to I think it was Tornatore's film, Cinema Paradiso, and I thought, how beautiful to see an Indian sort of version. But as you say, it has some significant differences as well. But had that film at all influenced you as well?
I saw Cinema Paradiso like nearly 25 years ago in India at a film club, and I had never gone out of my country. And when I saw that movie, I almost thought that 7, 8 scenes he had, how can stolen from my life. And I thought, how can this Italian guy know what I did in my little village? That was my question. Rather than it's a great movie, I was of course moved, and as a film lover, totally. But I said, that's fine, it's a great movie, but those 7, 8 incidents in the movie, it's like even the way the kid sits is how I sat, and that bugged me for a long time. And then it went away, because I never wanted to make a film about my childhood or my my Cinema Paradiso. So when I returned to it, in a way, it was not only Cinema Paradiso, but there was a work of so many filmmakers riding in my head, that all these people have inspired me. They have cherished my life. Honestly, those films and their filmmakers have made my life better since I fell in love with cinema. And this will be my first and last chance to pay some kind of a homage to them. So this is when I thought, but then it shouldn't become too much of a gimmick. it shouldn't be too loud, and I had literally so many incidents, in the film that, like the Stanley Kubrick frame, from 2001 Space Odyssey, when he's looking at it, or David Lean when somebody looks at the flame of the matchstick, it's like one shot. So I said, all the people who love cinema, they might recall this, or others will forget. It'll like the story will move on. Whether they see a track and trolley sequence with three characters from Tarkovsky's Stalker, with evoking the similar sound design when they are going back. So there were a lot of what the French call clin d'oeil, a little subtle thing here and there. And I enjoyed, and wherever it was too loud, I took it out in the editing, And one of the scene which I loved the most was that when I saw Fellini's 8.5, there's a very famous scene where kids go to Saragina and give her little coin and say, please dance for us. And she's dancing for us. And this is exactly what we did as a kid. Next to our village was the whole gypsy camp. And we will go there and give this woman whose name was Lila Mila, I remember really well, very plumptious woman, and she used to have a cassette player, and we give her some money, little boom box, and sometime candies, sometime a coin, or sometimes cigarettes and beedies. And then she will, do little moves for us from Bollywood number, and we used to clap, So that was another movie when I saw that first time. I said, like, this is directly from what, and I'm sure many people who live in countryside did similar thing, So that scene I shot, but I ultimately took it out because it was just too much recall value, and it will take away from the story the way it was unfolding. But yeah, in a way, I ended up, it was endless, the name of, to think of name of the filmmakers and to pay some kind of a homage to them. Yeah.
Okay. Again, so interesting to hear that. And yeah, I got the film references in your film. They were really beautifully done, and I really enjoyed the
Yeah, I
ones.
think what I liked, we just opened film in Italy last week. It's in really more than 120 screen. And the first reviews are really good, but one which I like the most favorite in the press, it says, finally a spiritual successor to Cinema Paradiso. That's the headline, literally in Italian. I said, wow, this is amazing.
That's great. A spiritual successor. I love it. That's really nice. And in
I
fact,
loved it. Yes.
yeah, and in fact, the film has played in a number of countries now, of course, in Australia, and you're getting a fair bit of recognition for this film. I notice awards and other recognition and so on, which is great for you.
Yes, it's been amazing since we did premiere at Tribeca. There have been awards, but more than anything, in these days, to release such a film in cinema hall is such a challenging task, especially after post-pandemic and now the streaming era. So I could say that we are really blessed. Of course, we got more than like 30 awards. It was India's entry to the Oscar. We got shortlisted for the best nomination for the best international film.
Yep.
But what ultimately, every filmmaker, of course, dreams is to have audiences, like film coming out in Australia now and New Zealand last week. And before that, Italy. We opened, in Mexico and Peru, and so and Europe is still coming up. So I think that's what and for this film, I was insisting that even though you do it in few cinema hall, but please try and watch it in cinema hall. Of course it will come on a streaming, our platform later on. But this would, I used to request all the distributor that let it live for even few days in cinema hall. I know we don't have marketing budget, we don't have studio, we don't have superstar, we don't have studio star streamer, none of the S, but we have a story and it can hold. So I cannot complain at all. We feel so happy with me and my team and cast, and every day we get news. Thus, just this morning we got a letter from Zhang Yimou and Golden Panda Award from China that we've been nominated for Best International Picture. And ceremony happening in 10 days in China. So,
Wow.
I never thought that we would have watched the movie, Zhang Yimou watching it. So, and we had messages from like Harvey Keitel for our kid who was playing the lead role. And then when he was in LA, he met with him, and they were eating Indian snacks together. so, so this is, now even Quentin Tarantino wants to see the film, and wonderful. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I really hope the Australian audience love the movie, because
I'm sure they will, and it's so great to hear the reaction that you're getting, and internationally, because the film speaks to anyone. It's an international film in many respects, paying tribute to cinema and so on. So that's really great news.
yeah, the
Um,
longest run we had in Japan. We are in 32nd week right now. It's the first time in my career I have a silver jubilee.
wow.
So Chiku Studio released it, and it's the Japan has been absolutely amazing run.
And it's interesting looking at your filmography, that you've made a number of films, different stories, different ideas. And you mentioned New Zealand before. You even made a film with David Wenham,
Yes.
and so on. So I like the way that you find different stories, different ideas in the films that you select to make.
I am a storyteller, and I like to fall in love with stories and characters. And once I fall in love with them, then I'll fight heaven and earth to make them, regardless of action, drama, whether they are in New Zealand, whether they are in America, wherever, because for me, the prime thing is to just fall in love with the story. And of course, there are certain subjects which are culturally, socially deeply rooted, which I wouldn't touch. But there are films which make you dream, and so that's where my journey starts, because then I know that I will have inspiration and courage and energy to give next couple of years of my life trying to make that movie. But it always starts with a great story. Am I bringing something? I mean, I always ask first question that do I want to myself see this movie? And very often I've discarded so many scripts I've written. I trust them. No, who wants to see this? So.
And just going back to the last film show, I noticed that you shot the film in 35mm widescreen. Were there any challenges in the actual shooting of the film, finding the right locations and so on?
So the film was actually shot on combination of 35mm vintage lenses, but body was digital. We created a contraption of our own
Ah,
to so we used Lomo lenses from Russia, which were very popular with directors like Kubrick and Tarkovsky. So but they are so old. How do you adapt it to the new technology? So we found a way to create the look. So that was challenging in the technical sense. But once we did the first test, the result was really exciting, with my cinematographer. And then we sort of worked on the color palette, the costume, and the location. The first obvious choice from the entire team was, hey, we must go back to where you grew up. Can we shoot there? Because no one shoots there. And then we realized no one comes to shoot there because there are no hotels. There is no infrastructure. So this area called Kathiawar is very rarely seen in cinema.
mm.
And my team agreed that, okay, we will find a way to stay. We will compromise, but this is breathtaking. We haven't seen, the lion roaming naturally, the animal, the open field, the meter gauge train line running still today, since the days of the British. So it's a kind of a timeless, but at the same time, if someone pulls out a smartphone, then you will know, oh, we are today. This is not 20 years ago. So we were all charmed, and I was, of course, happy to go back. And I ended up shooting some scenes, like I shot in my school where I studied. So, and the train station you see it's a real train station where I used to get off and go to my school.
Ah,
And the cinema hall Galaxy is where I saw my first movie as well.
ah,
So that cinema hall was shut for 25 years, and it was being used to store sugarcane. It was a giant warehouse of sugarcane. And so we removed all the sugar cane, and the wooden benches were still there with sit numbers since so many years, and we sort of refurbished and then made it work again with the production design team. We sort of completely and so that's the kind of authenticity we sort of try to find in terms of location, casting, colors, and there were anyway already all these actors who were also non-actors, which added to it.
How did your cast, especially the young lad who was the star of the film, how did he react when when they saw the final version of the film?
Oh, because he's a non-actor, I was not able to tell him the whole story or script. I realized that it will be a too much burden for his mind to carry, and his performance might get diluted. So once I understood his nature, what kind of performer he is, even though he's a natural, I realized he could take things in little doses. So I can give him a scene and he will do really well. And then next day, he himself will start putting together, oh, this is because I stole those reels. Oh, my father is beating me because I went to see cinema against his wish. So he said, yes, you got it. So it was a self-sense discovery. I never told him that, look, your father doesn't like that you go to see cinema. He discovered that, why am I getting beating from my father? I said, just think, what did we shoot 5 days ago? He said, well, I took 5 and went to see movie. Well, you made your dad upset. So uh, so when the movie finally, when he saw the complete film, he was literally like a true audience, totally like a child. All of them, they're watching it for first time. They totally love that and they were just so.
Okay, you've just frozen, Nalin. Okay. All right. Okay, I think I may have. All right, we might have to end it there. I'm so sorry. It looks like I don't know if you can still hear me, Nalin, but you're frozen at. Uh-huh.